guys. This is literally the second episode I record today. I feel very inspired. Today I want to talk about my limiting belief that I'm not able to lose weight. It just feels impossible for me, if I'm being honest. I've been wanting to lose weight for my entire life. And I don't know if it's the fact that I've always been wanting it that makes me feel like I'm not capable of achieving it. But today I wanted to just break down that limiting belief. It might not be exactly where your belief comes from. You might have a different reason for believing that you can't lose weight. This is a technique that I learned a few years ago. You just have to ask yourself a lot of questions to find the core answer. For example, how am I feeling right now? Oh, I'm feeling upset. Why do I feel upset? I feel upset because I had a fight with my brother. Why did the fight upset me so much? It upset me because he said mean things. I'm gonna be honest, that can be quite exhausting when you're journaling if you're not used to journaling. So today I did do something different just because I didn't want to spend the whole hour writing. I talked with ChatGPT. I found it very helpful. I strongly suggest using ChatGPT just because it helps you identify things that you might not be able to identify on your own. It did first ask me, when was the first time I remember feeling that I couldn't lose weight? Honestly, I don't remember the first time. I feel like I have felt like this my whole life. I always saw myself as the only obstacle between me and weight loss. And that being said, I always saw myself as an obstacle between me and what my dad wanted for me. My dad, he wanted me to follow the diet perfectly, exercise every single day, have zero cravings. On one side, it's what my dad wants, and then the other side is me. And as I am going towards my dad's side, there's something stopping me. And it's like another version of me. The version of me that has cravings. The version of me that gets anxious. The version of me who doesn't want to be on the diet or who feels too tired to exercise. So I always saw myself as that obstacle. I just remember going to my mom's room and crying, just exploding. I told her, I can't do this anymore. I'm so tired of thinking about food every single day. It's draining me. I felt defeated. I felt so tired of food because my life was so tiring. Thinking about food every single day, feeling like a failure every single day. I was devastated, and I remember I finished crying and I could just feel like, you know what, let's go again. I knew just because I cried it wouldn't stop. It's like when you're in a really toxic job and you just hate it and it makes you hate your life, and you go to your car and you cry your eyes out and you're like, no, I need to quit, I just can't do this anymore. But then you just wipe your tears away and you go back and continue your job, and you know that that's not the end of it. I think I was crying mostly because I just knew deep down in my heart losing weight was going to be the goal for the rest of my life. I would convince myself I'm gonna do so good. I'm gonna want to eat from the diet. I'm gonna have zero cravings. I'm gonna exercise every day. I'm gonna be losing weight so fast. On Monday, I'm gonna start. And then I'm never gonna order food again. I'm just gonna be locked in. Monday would come and I'd be so excited because this is the first day. This is my chance to get it right. Sometimes Monday would be perfect, but then Tuesday would come, or maybe even Wednesday, or maybe just that same Monday, and I would get anxious. Maybe someone offered me a cookie, or I wanted to emotionally eat, and then I was suddenly a failure. I was no longer perfect. Even if at that moment I didn't eat anything aside from the diet, even if I just had cravings, I already felt like a failure. And because I felt like a failure and I felt so upset with myself, I would binge because, I already broke it, so might as well just keep breaking it. I would tell myself, no, okay, but next week I'm gonna be so perfect and this is gonna be the last time I eat pizza. When you restrict yourself, your brain wants it more. I would tell myself, no, this is the last time I'm gonna do it. I would just restart again on Monday. I think I did that over 100 times. I'm not even joking. If you tell me I did that 300 times throughout my whole life, I would 100% believe you. And it was just this goal of being perfect, but I will always fall short. I always saw it as I'm currently in the stage of preparation. I'm in the stage where I'm prepping for day one and I'm hyping myself up and I know I'm gonna do good. And then stage 2 would actually be once you started the diet and once you started exercising every day and you're just doing that every single day. But I never found myself in stage 2. I would always be in stage 1 because I'd never get past the start of the diet. To be honest, I never really questioned the standard. I never really questioned, is this actually possible? But rather I would question myself. Why can't I do it? Why am I so weak? Why am I failing? It kind of reminded me of my dad. I always thought, okay, if my dad is asking me to not have cravings, it's because that is possible. So if I'm having cravings, it's because there's something wrong with me. whenever I didn't do something, although it wasn't my intention, he would make it seem like I was doing it on purpose, and I couldn't really defend myself. I couldn't explain why I had my cravings or why I didn't want to be in the diet. I look back and I think me not being able to do what my dad wanted just meant that I was falling short to his standards. But deep down, I know how it felt as a child, and it felt as if I wasn't able to earn his love. Because as I've said in past episodes, my dad would condition his love based on how I was regarding food. So if I wasn't following the diet, he would make it very clear that he was upset with me. And honestly, as I'm saying this, I feel like I'm villainizing him. I feel like I'm painting him in a very bad light and that he wasn't such a bad dad, or that I'm just making this up. But the fact that I'm so afraid of not following the diet and not exercising, a few weeks before I started actively working on healing my relationship with food, I would wake up and I would feel too tired to exercise, and I would literally pray to God, and I'd be like, I'm gonna exercise tomorrow, but please don't be mad at me for not exercising today. So I must have done that several times because my dad always had this expectation that I had to exercise every single day. So although right now I feel like I'm painting him in a bad light, I think I'm just painting him as who he was. Anyway, my dad painted me as someone who was obsessed with food, as someone who couldn't control their cravings and couldn't try or couldn't do things perfectly. I started believing what he said about me, and that became my reality. I became obsessed with food to the point where I would think about food 24/7 as soon as I woke up. I couldn't control my cravings. I felt like every single day I was craving fast food. That always made me feel like I was a problem and that I needed to be fixed. I couldn't be on my own and I couldn't really trust myself. And then what does that mean for me? Like, I guess it just meant I was proving my dad right. That assumption he had about me, about not being capable or not trying, just that would mean that I wasn't good enough. Here's the thing, my dad, he was looking for perfect, and he painted perfect as something achievable. If I were to actively try, I would get it because it's that easy. Being perfect is that easy. So if I just tried or put a little bit of effort, I would get it at once. It wouldn't be hard. But because I wasn't getting it, I felt like I wasn't trying, even though I was. So it always felt like I'm not trying hard enough. I don't want it bad enough. And honestly, that made me feel ashamed. What is wrong with me that I just can't do it? I felt incapable, incompetent, weak, wrong. Keep in mind, I think I dieted from when I was like 11 years old to when I was like 15, 16, and then I stopped. But then I myself would be like, no, like I'm gonna start a diet like this week, and I would start one every single week. This Monday, once I start it and once I'm perfect, I'm never in my life gonna have cravings again. I'm never gonna skip a workout. I'm just gonna start being perfect and I'm gonna continue as perfect, and my life is just gonna look like that. And for some reason, for someone who has craved pizza, I think every single week of their life, the idea of never craving pizza again for some reason sounds attainable. You crave fast food because there's a lot of restriction. When you don't feel like there's anything wrong with it being accessible, you're going to crave it less because it's there. When I used to eat pizza, I couldn't even enjoy what I was eating because I would feel guilty as I was eating it. But right now, I do get thoughts like that when I get cravings, but I later stopped counting calories. Food was no longer, am I hungry, do I want to have a snack, but rather, I'm hungry but I want to lose weight and I just have 200 calories left, so I cannot. Food just became calories and it just felt very toxic. I started giving myself permission to eat the things that I liked, started identifying limiting beliefs, working on the story I repeated in my mind. Because something I realized yesterday, I don't know, yesterday I was just like thinking a lot, and I realized whenever I think about something, my thought just reflects my limiting belief. So if I think about weight and I think, oh, I'm not gonna be able to lose weight by this date, or losing weight for me is hard, that thought just comes from my limiting belief, and my limiting belief is I can't lose weight, it's impossible for me. So if I were to change my limiting belief, my thought would reflect my new limiting belief. So if my new belief is I am able to lose weight, my thought would be I will be able to lose weight by this date. So if you're feeling anxious, you're probably thinking thoughts that make you feel anxious. Anyway, when I moved to Canada, I started to realize I'm the one who has to make the diet. It's no longer my dad. I have to make it for myself. And I have to make sure that I exercise every day. And like a part of me was acting as my dad. Like every thought I've had has been my dad's. Every negative thought I've had regarding food has been just repeating what my dad would tell me. So technically my dad never left. But it always felt like if I just tried, it would work. But because it wasn't working, I wasn't trying. And because I wasn't trying, I wouldn't be able to achieve it. It literally feels like my my body was working against me. And obviously, like, I've known this, I've experienced this my whole life, but just putting it down on words just hits different. Like, my body is working against me. I want to go to the right, but my body is taking me left. I want to have zero cravings, but my body's having cravings. I want to exercise every single day, but my body is in pain today. So it felt like no matter what I did, it would never be enough because my body was always against me. And I was like, it's stupid to try again because it's not even gonna work. And then what does that mean about me? It meant that I was incapable, unprepared, I can't do simple stuff, I lack control. If that's how I see myself, that is probably the lens that I would use in any area of my life. So it makes sense that whenever I would turn into the area of losing weight, I would see myself as incapable, unprepared, and lacking control. And that's the key. That's why I think of myself as incapable of losing weight. So this is basically what ChatGPT told me. It said, exactly. It sounds like over time, your belief that you can't lose weight wasn't just about weight itself. It became a part of a deeper belief about your capability as a person. Your dad's rigid expectations taught you that success meant perfection and anything less felt like failure, not just in actions, but in your worth as a person. When you moved out, you tried to keep control in your own way, but when your body didn't respond the way you hoped, it reinforced the idea that you were the problem, that your body was working against you. Over time, each attempt felt like more proof that you weren't capable, not because you weren't trying, but because you were carrying a belief that you were already set up to fail. That belief, I can't lose weight, seems less like a reflection of your true ability and more like a conclusion you drew after years of being made to feel like you had to be perfect and feeling like you could never measure up. What's really been working against you is the impossible standard that told you success was only valid if it looked perfect, effortless, and immediate. And whenever I think, oh, I need to lose weight, the fastest way to lose weight is to follow the diet every single day, exercising every single day. Like, that has been my life, and that's the life for a lot of people. Honestly, I don't think my dad would be able to follow his standard. I think my dad, he also hated himself for having cravings. He also hated himself for not exercising every day. I guess what really sucked for me was that he made me feel like I wasn't trying, but I literally developed an eating disorder. I would eat ice, I would over-exercise, I would skip meals, I would throw up, and despite me doing all of that, he would tell me that I wasn't doing enough. So even when I was giving my 110%, even if that meant it was killing me, I still felt like it wasn't enough. I strongly believe that he wouldn't have done that if he genuinely knew that he was harming me. But it's moments like this where I'm like, I don't want to forgive you. Like, you literally made me feel so bad for 8 years. And now I'm 23. I feel like I can't lose weight no matter how hard I try to, and it sucks when that's the only thing I want. I feel like a part of me genuinely believes that once I lose weight, I'm no longer going to feel this stress and feel this guilt, and I'll just be carefree, and I will feel very lightweight in like the emotional sense, not the physical sense. And I'll have permission to stop caring. I'll be able to be okay with my body, and I think that's what everyone wants when they say they want to lose weight, that they've been wanting to lose weight for their whole life. They want to get to the point where they no longer have to think about food and no longer have to think about weight. But I promise you, that's not going to change even when you lose weight. You have to change the belief, you have to change the habit, you have to stop caring about how you look like, start loving yourself before you actually lose weight. Even in the moments where I've been the most skinny, I've been very self-conscious. So it's not about how you look like, it's about your mind, your beliefs, and how you treat yourself. If you're so used to treating yourself like crap, no matter how many pounds you lose, you're gonna keep treating yourself like crap. Because guess what? Guess what happens after you lose weight? You have to maintain your weight. You think you're not gonna stress about food? You think you're just gonna magically lose weight and stop stressing about food? No. And I'm not only talking to you, I'm talking to me. So basically the key is to detach myself from that belief that I can't lose weight, give myself proof that I can, and kind of like understand the thought process I went through before, but now explain the thought process from a different perspective. For example, before I would be like, my dad has this standard of me and I haven't been able to achieve it. I feel like a failure. So now I can wrap that and I can be like, my dad has had this standard for me. I couldn't achieve it. I felt like a failure, but I couldn't achieve it because it was unrealistic, not because I was a failure. Everyone who tried to achieve that standard wouldn't be able to do it because it's unrealistic. There was nothing wrong with me. The standard itself was wrong. And that's basically how you break things down and give yourself like a different perspective and just understanding it in a deeper level kind of like tells your brain, okay, I can think about it differently, because you basically want to stop thinking what you've been thinking for your whole life. Your brain has to understand why you're changing that, you know? But yeah, that's what I have for you guys today. Obviously, I'm gonna keep journaling about this and I'm gonna share what I journal. I highly suggest this exercise. I hope this was insightful. And obviously, this is an exercise that you can use for anything, not necessarily just things about weight. Any limiting belief you have, or even if you don't know what the limiting belief is, if you just kind of like want to question your thoughts so you can identify that belief, you don't need to use ChatGPT, but you can. It's really helpful. And it's always important that if you do end up using ChatGPT, like, you still journal about the whole conversation, just because it gives you more time to like process everything. So even after I had this conversation, I am going to write it on my journal. I'm going to write my own conclusions and any ideas that come up as I'm like going through it. Thank you so much for listening. I encourage you to check out my social media and please stay tuned for next week's episode. God bless you.